From the heart of the Space City to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
Hey, everybody. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. Obviously, the State of the Union. We're going to get to that a little bit later in the show. We've got the Olympics. A lot of great stuff happened at the Olympics. I'm not usually an Olympic watcher. I'm definitely not usually a hockey watcher. But I'll tell you this. I was locked in to that match against Canada. Why? Because I'm a proud American. And like all true proud Americans, I really just wanted to watch Canada lose. And they did to us, which is even better. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. We're going to be talking about Alyssa Liu, I don't know how you pronounce her name, but she obviously won gold. She's been at the center of some controversy on X, and of course the gold medal hockey team has had their own share of controversy. We got a lot to talk about. Before we get into that, I want to talk about just 250 years of the United States of America. That's not nothing. That's a big deal. Most countries don't make it that long. That's just a simple fact. Most countries rise and fall in way shorter amount of time than the United States of America. The fact that we've made it 250 years is something worth celebrating, and celebrate we are. Deus Volt lapel pins, our show sponsor, has created something that I think, frankly, is gorgeous and can't wait for it to come back in stock so I can get one. The PAX 250 America Anniversary pin. I mean, just look at this thing. It's so cool looking. It just looks cool. The eagle with the World War II helmet on the big, I guess, Roman or Greek pillar. It just looks so cool. And I'm waiting for the second release of these pins right now because I've told you before, he does these in small batches, all right? So they're high quality. He does them in, I think, 50 pins a piece. This sold out in the first hour it dropped. So we're about 2 weeks away from the second batch of these coming out and being available. You can get notified right now at deusvoltlapelpins.com so that you'll get a notification when the next batch of these drops and you can go get one. I'm definitely going to be getting one once they come out. You should too. Again, I love these pins. I'm wearing one right now. You can see it if you're watching. I can't recommend these enough, and it's not just because they're a show sponsor. It's because I actually really do love this product. I bought it myself. I paid my own money for it. I do it 1,000 times over because they're fantastic. But anyway, moving on from that, let's talk a little bit about the Olympic gold medalist Alyssa Liu. Now, something very interesting is happening with Alyssa Liu. Obviously, a lot of folks on the right who are very patriotic are very excited to see Americans win gold in the Olympics. And that's what happened with her. She did a fantastic job of figure skating and she won a gold medal. Congratulations to her. That should be something that everybody should be able to, good job. Especially when, as you can see in the picture, she's very proudly doing it while representing the United States of America. Now you can see in this tweet from Jack Posobiec, Alyssa Liu refused to skate for the CCP after they persecuted her father. She is now a gold medalist for Team USA. That's even better. Great story. Great story. Her father was someone who loved freedom, left his home country, presumably some family behind to come to America for that freedom, came here as a legitimate refugee, built a family, had a daughter, and now she's proudly representing the United States. This should be universally applauded because, one, she's not just somebody hopping across the border because, oh, I can make more money here. That's not where her family came from. That's an actual political refugee, someone whose life is actually in danger because he was at the Tiananmen Square protest and or massacre. And she actually came here because her family loves democracy. She wasn't in China. She was born here in the United States. She's not much older or younger than me. So her family is a family that truly understands the difference between things like communism and American freedom. And obviously, having someone like that representing the United States and doing a good job of that, that's something that most Republicans, most conservatives, love and support. Now, the left can't understand why we don't hate this woman because she disagrees with us. And this, I think, really speaks to the difference between the average conservative, the average kind of right-winger, and the average leftist. The left really does truly hate the people who do not agree with them on a political level. The right does not have that problem. We can not like you. We can kind of argue with you. But at the end of the day, we don't hate you. So a left-wing account started circulating this video of Alyssa Liu saying that she doesn't necessarily like what the Trump administration is doing on immigration. Here it is.
I definitely do really care about what our country is doing, and I think it is really important also to, notice like the faults in our own government. Yeah, very, very similar to my dad. Like, yeah, things are a little rough in our countries, but I think every government has its issues. There's so many protests that are going on, and I've attended, and it's, yeah, I mean, coming from a family of immigrants, like, I think immigrants deserve rights. I think it's a little silly, especially in America.
So obviously, Alyssa Liu and I do not agree politically. I think we need to deport pretty much every illegal alien here right now. And she and I probably don't see eye to eye on that, and that's fine. Because notice what she didn't say. What the left might have you believe is she said, like many others, that we need to just completely tear down the system and, oh, I'm ashamed of this country and it's difficult to wear the flag. That's not what she said. What she said was our government has problems. And she and I agree 100% on that. Obviously, our government has problems. And like she pointed out, every government has issues. So all she's really saying there is, yeah, there's some things going on in the United States that I don't agree with. But throughout the rest of her Olympic career, at least in this last Olympics, she was very proudly representing the United States. And that's what I don't think a lot of left-wingers understand. You do not have to believe that every single thing the U.S. government is doing is completely right in order to be proud of your country. Because your country is not your country's government. That's, again, the left is in this position where government is their be-all, end-all, right? They have no God. They worship government. And so if the government is doing something you don't like, that's it. You've got nothing else. There's nothing else about this country for them. Whereas most conservatives believe that America and the American system, it's more than just a system of governments. It's a system of beliefs. It's a system of values that all work together. And obviously it's a land and a heritage. It's more to us than just a government. So we can disagree with those that are representing us on a political level and still have a good time and still support them. We'll be right back with more. Alrighty, welcome back to the Next Gen Report. We're talking about the Olympics, more specifically the reaction to the Olympics. I think it's really important to really just point out the dichotomy here. People on the right tend to be very supportive of anyone that supports the country, even if we disagree politically, namely Alyssa Liu. I'm positive Alyssa Liu is a very, very left-wing person. I guarantee you she and I have never and probably will never vote for the same presidential candidate. I don't care. I'm happy for her that she won an Olympic gold medal because she was representing the United States. Whether or not she agrees with all the policies I agree with, she makes the United States look good. And that's what I support. By all means, American greatness, that's what I want. And she's a good example of that, even if she doesn't agree with me politically. She's a good example of American freedoms attracting great people who come on and do great things in the name of the United States. That's awesome. I support that. Now, I want to point out some contrast with another Chinese-American athlete, I guess. This is a woman who is ethnically half Chinese, half American. Her mother, I believe, was born in China, and she chose to represent China in the Olympics as a skier. So here's the headline from The Atlantic, and I just want to point out this dichotomy. Eileen Gu was the highest paid earner at the 2026 Winter Olympics. The scientist, politician, skier, model, and student is like a magician. The audience, dazzled by her majesty, or mastery, I'm sorry, I misread that. Dazzled by her mastery, but somewhat irked by how she does it, our columnist writes. Now, I've followed the Olympic discourse pretty closely. We weren't irked by how she did it. We were irked by who she did it for. She's an American citizen. She chose rather to represent the country that she's a citizen of, that she was born in, that she has lived in her whole life. She represented a communist nation. So that tells you a couple of things. First of all, for all of the Democrat opining about, oh, human rights and oh, democracy and la-di-da-di-da, clearly they don't care because this woman is a hero to her or to them. She's a leftist who chose to represent another country over America. And I imagine politics probably played a role in that. I don't know. I haven't heard her reasoning. But she chose to represent communist China over the free United States. And the left worships her specifically for this. Specifically for this. So save me all your opining about how important democracy is and how important human rights is. I remind you, the father of Alyssa Liu left China specifically because he was in danger of being killed for being present at the Tiananmen Square protests. All right, so the left clearly does not care as much about, basic decency, really, as they claim to. It's really just about scoring political points. Now, contrast that with this headline from the New York Times about the men's hockey team, which unapologetically loves the United States of America. From The Athletic, U.S. men's hockey stars Jack and Quinn Hughes respond to what Jack called the backlash the team has faced surrounding their post-Olympics call with President Trump. So this has been all of the discourse around the men's hockey from the mainstream media. They haven't been congratulatory of the men for winning a gold medal. They have been judgmental of the fact that they celebrated with members of the Trump administration and are very happy to be patted on the back by the Trump administration. And I'll give you an example of this. The call in question that article is referencing is this one right here. I'll play it for you. As they were celebrating their big gold medal victory over the Canadians, they got a call from President Trump and he gave them an attaboy. Here it is.
Watch 1 minute. 1 minute. And by the way, your goalie played not bad.
How are you? Say hi. How are you? Say hi to him.
How you doing, Don? I have seen hockey goalies have slightly worse games. Unbelievable, and you were all unbelievable. And that team is pretty good you played. I don't know.
So obviously they're all very happy to get the phone call from President Trump. You can hear them in the back. Hi, Don. They're excited. They're happy. I think probably you should have said, hi, Mr. President. I don't know what the technical rules are, but whatever. They're having a good time. They're having some brewskis, cracking open some cold ones. Kash Patel was in there with them singing songs. They actually invited Kash Patel because he was there, I guess, representing the United States in the stands. They invited Kash Patel to come down to the locker room and have beers with them. And there's videos of them clanking beers together and like singing Toby Keith and awesome stuff. They're clearly having a good time. And the left hates that because, oh, the Trump administration is evil and they're pushing policies we don't like. So you're supposed to be, super oppositional to them. And that's the attitude on the left. There is no congratulations coming from the left. And that's not just me saying that. They're very open about, oh, it sucks that the U.S. men's hockey team is so happy to be patted on the back by President Trump. Here's this post from Reddit. It's from Reddit, so go figure. It's woke and stupid. But this says, I tried to be happy about the win, but I knew that this would happen, and it would put a sour taste in my mouth. I'm disgusted by this administration's attempt to use all of our athletes as propaganda tools. All right, let me stop you right there. Have you heard of the entire history of the Olympics? That's what this event is. It's governments using their athletes as propaganda. I mean, that's literally the whole thing. That's the whole thing. I point you back to the Berlin Olympics when Nazi Germany was using their athletes as propaganda, or the entire Cold War, where the whole story was American athletes versus Russian athletes because of the Cold War. I mean, this is the whole Olympics. So if you're disappointed by the government using athletes as propaganda tools at the freaking Olympics, don't ever tune into the Olympics again, because it's going to be the same thing. With all of the damage that he has done already to our relationship with Canada, it's even worse. I just want to be able to enjoy Team USA without being reminded of the ways he's terrorizing the world. And listen, you can just enjoy the sport without having to worry about Donald Trump, because I don't know if you know this, but what's going on with who President Trump is giving an attaboy to, that really doesn't have to define your life. You can say, I'm proud of our hockey team, and still say, I don't like President Trump. It's not that hard to do. But if you'd ask the left, they'd tell you it's completely impossible. They are demanding that everyone on the U.S. hockey team completely reject President Trump in its entirety. I'll show you an example of that too, just so you know I'm not just making crap up. I don't remember where exactly this article was published, but I found it on Twitter, and here's the headline so you can go find it for yourself. The U.S. men's Olympic hockey team won gold and then lost the room. That's the headline. Here's what the article says. In normal times, this would be an obligatory celebration for a championship team. They take presidential calls. They party too hard. They visit Washington and stroll through the corridors of power. So here they are admitting, yeah, actually what they're doing is completely normal. This happens all the time. So as much as the left would like to pretend, oh, this is terrible that this is happening, this is actually what happens every single time. And if it was a Democrat in power doing the same thing, calling them, giving him an attaboy, and inviting them to the State of the Union, they would be all for it. But because it's President Trump, it's actually bad, and we're using our athletes as propaganda. They say that in the article. But this isn't a neutral climate, and this isn't a neutral president. And in a nation this polarized, the proximity carries weight, whether the players are being intentionally or merely naive. Now, listen, I think from the evidence I've seen that the players actually really enjoy President Trump and are right-wing leaning, which would be not surprising at all, because from what I understand from hockey fans, a lot of the hockey audience base is very right-wing. So I'm not surprised the players are right-wing as well. And even if they weren't right-wing, I don't care. These people did a great, impressive thing on behalf of the United States of America. They deserve to be celebrated for that by everyone, regardless of whether or not you agree with them. It's cool that they won gold for the United States. All right, we're going to talk about the State of the Union, highlights and reaction coming up right after this break. All right, let's talk about President Trump's State of the Union. This was the first official State of the Union of his second presidential term. We had kind of an unofficial one at the start of last year. This is the first official State of the Union. He did a joint address to Congress. This is the first official named State of the Union. And boy, was it a doozy. This is the best State of the Union I have ever watched in my life. And I've watched a bunch. I watch these every single year. I'm in politics. I have to. But I also enjoy them. This is the longest one I've ever seen and the greatest one I've ever seen. We'll be joined by Nick Lindquist in a little bit to kind of talk about this a bit more. He, of course, is a fantastic political mind, fantastic analyst mind. He'll be joining us to talk a little bit about what we saw. But I want to give you some of my kind of initial reactions before we get into talking about this with Nick. I really cannot say enough how good President Trump was. He was on his game the whole time. This was a 2-hour speech. He didn't slump. He didn't seem like he was out of it. He didn't seem slow. He was on it the entire time. He was with it. He was in it. It was fantastic. He destroyed the Democrat caucus, the entire Democrat Party. I would be surprised if we don't see their popularity crater over the next couple of days and weeks. Looking at the polling, I mean, this was just a god-awful night for them. And that's really the best way to put it. They screwed themselves over here. Of course, it was very much a victory lap, which is what we expected to see. So I guess let's start with that. Here is kind of the biggest intro victory moment of President Trump, where he's just touting, over the last year, we've had $18 trillion pour in. That's new investment. That's new jobs. It was a great moment in the speech, and it's a great reminder of, hey, listen, we know the economy's not perfect, but to sit here and say that there's no progress being made, it just doesn't line up with reality. So here is President Trump to talk about that.
In 4 long years, the last administration got less than $1 trillion in new investment in the United States. And when I say less, substantially less. In 12 months, I secured commitments for more than $18 trillion pouring in from all over the globe. Think of it, much less than $1 trillion for 4 years versus much more than $18 trillion for 1 year. What a difference a president makes. A short time ago, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world, the hottest.
And everybody gets up and cheers. It's a good moment. It's a good look. It is. And it's a great reminder of the fact that, hey, we have had economic progress. This lie that you keep hearing that things are just the same, if not worse, it's just that. It's a lie. That $18 trillion, that comes in the form of investments. That is money that is going to be put into American business, American jobs, that will filter down into the pockets of everyday Americans. That's a good thing. The other thing that Trump did, which I'm predicting now that this is going to kind of be a victim of the myriad of headlines from the evening, but this is something that I think the Republicans should be pushing, and that is their new health care plan. That is an issue that Americans want to see action on, that the Democrats, for whatever reason, have owned for a long time, and President Trump was finally able to come out and say, hey, look, this is what the Republicans want to do on health care. So here's the bullet points. I don't have time to play the clip, because if I play every clip of this speech I want to play, we'll be here for 2 hours. But here is the kind of bullet points of Trump's healthcare plan. 1, lower drug prices. He's going to do that by slashing prescription drug prices. I can't talk. And allowing more over-the-counter medicines. Then lower insurance premiums, doing that by sending money directly to the American people, which will then allow them to go shop around for their insurance, rather than saying, hey, this taxpayer money is going to go to the insurance companies. We're saying it's going to go to the American people, and then the American people can use it to buy their own insurance. So it's not just blank checks to insurance companies. That's progress. If you want prices to go down, that's how you do it. Fund cost-sharing reduction programs and cut kickback costs, and then hold big insurance companies accountable, which means create plain enough insurance standards, publish costs of overhead versus claim payments, and display claim denial rates. And then maximize price transparency, post prices on the wall. Sorry if it's hard to read. This text is really small. I encourage you to look into this a little bit more. Obviously, this is going to be a game changer for the Republicans because, again, like I said, the Democrats have owned this issue for a long time. And it is far and away time for the Republicans to take it back. Because, again, the Democrats haven't actually done anything on this. All they have to show for their ownership of the healthcare issue is Obamacare. And everybody universally agrees that it sucks. So if Trump and the GOP can take that issue back, especially for young people, that's going to be a big deal. It really is. Obviously, there was the tax thing. That's going to be big because of tax season. You know what? I'll go ahead and play the clip. I think I've got time. I'll play the clip here. Here's President Trump highlighting his tax cuts that were in the big, beautiful bill. Take a listen to this.
Last year, I urged this Congress to begin the mission by passing the largest tax cuts in American history, and our Republican majorities delivered so beautifully. Thank you, Republicans. All Democrats, every single one of them, voted against these really important and very necessary, massive tax cuts.
And that's right there what I want you to take note of, is that very subtle jab at the Democrats. And he did a fantastic job of just letting these people make a fool of themselves. And I think the best way to prove that to you is this clip. This was the most insane moment of the night to me. And we'll talk about this more with Nick, I'm sure. But this is the moment where Trump just simply said, if you agree that the American government should work for the American people and not illegal aliens, just stand up. And not a single Democrat did. It's unbelievable that they just sat there during this. This is going to look terrible for them forever. Take a look. This is insane.
So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
And of course, all the Republicans stand up and clap. All the Democrats are still sitting. It's unbelievable. If you're just listening right now to the podcast, go watch the video so you can see it. This is crazy. And he gives them time. He's pointing to him. Come on. Stand up. What are you doing? He gives them every opportunity. And they just keep sitting. This is unbelievable political maneuvering by the president. I have never seen anything like this. This is just a master move. They've got all the time in the world. Come on. They won't stand up. They're just sitting there. I mean, frankly, they look confused. They're like, do we? Should we? There's Mark Kelly just sitting down. And they don't stand up. This is going to be the night, or the moment from the night that's remembered the most. Because again, you heard it. What he said wasn't anything radical or out of the box or extremely right wing. All he said was, if you believe this government should work for its people, just stand up and join with me in that statement. He's not saying if you believe we should deport everybody. He just said, if you believe that this government should work for its people, stand up. And not a single one of them could. All you have to do is not be crazy. And that's crazy. You think the American people, the average Joe in America, is going to look at that when they go into the voting booth in November? You think that's going to be popular with them? I mean, that is the definition of saying we're for them, not for you. Except that them in this case is the American people that voted for you. It's insane. It's insane. Anyway, I've got so much I want to say about this, but I also want to get some feedback on it because obviously this was a night to remember. So I'm going to have Nick Lindquist join us in just a moment. We will be right back after a short break. We're going to have more State of the Union reaction. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be back in just a second with more of the Next Gen Report. Alrighty, we are talking about President Trump's State of the Union last night. I can talk about it myself all day. However, I think it'd be nice to get some expert opinion. So joining us to give us some more reaction to the State of the Union, the first State of the Union of Trump's second term, at least the first official one, we are joined by Nick Lindquist. Nick, hey, thanks for joining me on short notice. I appreciate it.
Absolutely happy to do it.
So let me just start with this. How do you think this measures up in terms of some of the State of the Unions that we've had in the past? I mean, for my money, this is the best one, hands down. I mean, I feel like Trump was on his game. He was hitting the Democrats as hard as he possibly could, while at the same time, he's not being, aggressive and abrasive necessarily. He's not, saying anything that'll really upset the soccer moms, for lack of a better term, but at the same time, he was pushing his agenda in the most popular ways and also just clowning on the Democrats. This to me is presidential politics at its best.
Yes, I agree with that. I think, well, first of all, it was very long, of course, but
Yeah.
I think it was all substance. I think it was all substance. And, I agree that he wasn't necessarily inflaming any tensions, and he wasn't fanning any flames. He really let them walk into their own bullshit, for lack of better terms. I mean, I'm just thinking about the moment when he essentially said, stand up and clap if you agree that protecting our borders and defending American citizens from crime and violent illegals is good. And of course, the entire Republican side stood up and clapped. And Democrats, for some reason, decided that was not the time to stand up and clap. I mean, like things like that. He just let them walk into it themselves. And also, going into this, I wasn't sure how it was going to go because there are certain problems
Mhm.
that we see, still going on. Like, inflation hasn't entirely tamped down and things like that. But I think overall it was very strong, especially when he talked about foreign policy and, you know, respecting our military.
Yeah, one thing I did notice was on military issues, particularly towards the end when he's bringing out some of the veterans. Those were the moments when even the Democrats did stand up. And to your point, I think you're right. That moment where he said, "Hey, if you believe that the American government should work for Americans and not illegal aliens, just stand up." And, there was nothing that he added on to that. He didn't say, if you believe we should deport everybody, if you believe we should give ICE $1 bajillion to do whatever they want. All he said was, if you believe the American government should work for the American people, stand up. And they couldn't do it, which I think, for everything we saw from the Democrat caucus last year when they were going bananas and yelling and fighting, that to me was even worse for them than anything we've seen out of that caucus before. That's going to be in headlines. That's going to be in clips. That's going to be in campaign ads from now until November.
Oh, absolutely. And this is just another example of Trump 2.0. I mean, Trump 2.0, Trump's second term is a lot different than his first. In his first, he would have, he would have provoked them in a way that was like very blatant. And like you were saying, the soccer moms would have noticed. No, in this situation, he let them fall on their own sword. And that is a great strategy because in this administration, he's doing things that appeal to everyone. I mean, how could you be upset with, record low crime rates in the biggest cities in America across the country? How could you be upset with, like unemployment being the way that it is, and most people who want a job have a job? Like, how could you be upset with these things? Well, you can't, and Trump knows that, and so it's time to just let them fall on their own sword and highlight the accomplishments that he has made, which there are a lot of them. And actually, I think this State of the Union was so great because it reminded me, hey, certain things still aren't perfect, but we've accomplished a lot in just a year. I mean, there's so many things to point to that were so good, and I'm so glad that we're in the situation we are today than we were 2 years ago today.
Yeah, and to that point, he did a great job, I think, of just really taking back some of that momentum that the GOP has kind of frankly lost a little bit. It's been sort of lackluster, but he took back momentum as well as kind of those popular issues, home ownership, home affordability, health care even. That's an issue that the Democrats have owned for forever. And he was able to come out there and say, look, no, here is our plan. Their plan didn't work. Their plan was Obamacare. You don't like that. Everybody agrees the American healthcare system sucks. Here's the new plan. It's ours. We're going to start paying people directly so they can do their own shopping. We're not just going to write blank checks to healthcare companies anymore. I think that was a great way to just sort of say, hey, we know things aren't perfect. We're not going to try to lie to you and tell you, hey, ignore your feelings. But at the same time, we've got a plan. We are working on this.
Yeah, great point on the healthcare thing. The Trump RX improvements of the way people are able to obtain their prescriptions for much lower rates. Like, how could you be against that? And actually, I can't remember if it was at that point or a different point, but at one point he had Elizabeth Warren standing up and clapping. I mean, how do you do that
Yeah,
at all?
that's impressive.
As a Republican president, it's pretty impressive. And with the healthcare thing, it's like this is something that no president, Democrat or Republican, has really ever addressed. And finally, we're getting some movement on these things that basically every American can agree needs to change. And he's finally doing something about it. I think that's awesome. And I'm glad that he's getting recognition for that. I mean, there were certain points where even Democrats had to stand up. There's no choice.
Yeah, and it's something that I think is going to resonate really a lot with kind of younger folks, folks your age and mine that are looking at things like starting families, buying homes, providing for those families with things like healthcare. So let me ask you this in this last minute that we have. What do you think you'd see if you had to guess? What do you think you see sort of midterm polling in general doing over the next, let's say, week and a half as the kind of dust settles on this speech? Do you see Trump and the Republicans really grabbing that momentum and gaining ground?
I think they will grab momentum and gain ground on certain things. I think, like I was saying, even with my own personal point of view of this administration. It reminded me of a lot of the things that have been accomplished. Of course, not every American watches the State of the Union, but I think that, this State of the Union reminded people who do watch it what's going on. And I think, overall, it's also just, it was really motivating for the Republicans tonight. So I don't see any other way to look at it than that. So I think we could gain momentum on tonight, and I hope that sticks. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And the other part of this is I think Donald Trump is the most positively engaged on foreign policy, and he's probably the most engaged on foreign policy in like a century. I mean, this is kind of like history altering stuff that he's doing across the world. And it's good stuff, but it's also stuff that most normal Americans don't really pay attention to or vote based on. So there's a lot of good stuff happening. It's just a matter of taking the more domestic policies and really, really highlighting those to make sure that the midterms go well for us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We'll have to wait and see really what happens. To your point, Nick, thank you very much for joining me to talk about the State of the Union. I have been Ethan Buchanan. This is the Next Gen Report. Tune in Sunday, 7 p.m. We'll be back with more on AM 950 KPRC.